Es bien verdad.
To this very special occasion and to join a very special group today. As many of you know, this year marks the 60th anniversary of the founding of Fuzhou, and which is the high school where most of us spent our formative years. For that, we would like to invite you, and we were told this is mandatory, to make a short video message to send to Fuzhou, and in which you are finally able to complain about that place in any way you wanted, that you did it for fear of being expelled. And for the rest of you who are just friends of the high school, I'm so sorry you didn't get in. But you too are welcome to stand in front of that camera to complain about that. But for now, friends or alumni, we are all in one family. This is the 4th anniversary of the founding of this very foundation. By the virtue of being here today, you have all become, if you hadn't already, members of this foundation. So please do let us know what you want to make out of this particular membership. Do you want to get some great social activities? How about career resources? Maybe experiences at nonprofit that is professionally run? Or in our best dreams, you would want us to help you find someone else to help. Well, we can do that. But first and foremost, we want to be your friends in life. And to allow this friendship to get started, please allow me to quickly review today's agenda with you. If you haven't registered already, I believe most of you have, please do check with Julia. We do want to take down your contact information in case you win a lottery trip to China. We then invite you to the delicious 3-course Italian in a restaurant operated by none other than a fellow alumnus of our school. Between the appetizer and the main course, we will invite our keynote speaker, Vinnie Wu, to talk about a hopefully great interest of yours, the education of nearly 200 million young Chinese in regions with severely limited resources. He will also talk about probably the brightest beacon of hope in addressing that problem, the high-profile establishment of the China Education Initiative, where you might be able to find exciting ways to be part of a revolution. Between the main course and dessert, we'll invite you to a deep dive into the operating status of and the philosophy behind this foundation. We want to share with you how far we have traveled, why we are so passionate about the journey, and why we think you should come and join the ride with us. Finally, we will close this event with some...
Having grown up in China, in the biggest city in China, Shanghai, we are very much spoiled. And for most of us, we don't really have enough knowledge about the education system, in the education situation in rural China. So, but I think somewhere down the road of the Foundation's future, we also share with CEI the same ambitious vision and mission to change the landscape of the Chinese education system for the better, in particular to bridge this gap between rural and urban China, which is why I think it's a great honor for us to have Vincent here to talk a little bit about his involvement and experience with CEI so far. And Vincent was born in Hong Kong, raised in Canada, graduated from Dartmouth in 2003. Prior to joining CEI, he was working as the director of the Language Resource Center at the Montessori School in Beijing, after, I think, previously having taught at the American School in Shanghai. Let's give it up for Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. First of all, hello, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, great.
First of all, I would like to thank Minhua and the committee, the association, for organizing such a wonderful event today. It really is a privilege to be here to share with you some of the very exciting work the China Education Initiative has embarked on. And I do hope that I'd love to open it up for some question and answers as well after I have a chance to briefly introduce the program and show a short video as well. So I thought I'd start off by saying just a little bit about the context for where CEI comes from. Just out of curiosity, who has actually traveled or spent extensive time in rural areas in China, just out of curiosity? Okay, all right. And what was the context, if I might ask?
That was our family sponsored a girl in rural areas.
Okay, great. So I think that most of you are quite aware that there's a huge disparity between rural areas and urban areas in China right now. There are a lot of different statistics that one could look at. In some rural areas within China, the students are more than 10 times as likely to drop out of school as their urban counterparts. And you know, as China develops on the world stage, in a lot of ways the economic reforms in the last 30 years that have really benefited the coastal regions haven't necessarily trickled down to and affected some of the more western regions in China or in inland provinces. And CEI came to be really through the initiative of two individuals, Andrea Passanetti and Rachel Wasser. Andrea studied at Princeton, Rachel was graduated at Yale University, and they had been sort of involved in China for quite a while now, several years. Andrea was originally doing his thesis research in China, looking at the new socialist countryside reform, and became very quickly aware of the growing educational disparities between rural and urban areas in China, and decided to look at doing something on a practical level about that. He was joined by one of his colleagues, Tsinghua graduate Li Bing, to look at really starting an organization that could actually do something to address those issues. And the inspiration for CEI really came from a program called Teach for America. Just out of curiosity, who's familiar with Teach for America? Okay, so a good number of people. So Teach for America was started about 20 years ago in the US. And at that time, they were really looking at addressing the issue of, you know, why is it that a student who grows up in an inner city school, just by virtue of the fact of the circumstances that they were born into, has vastly different educational prospects for the future compared to someone who grows up in an affluent suburban white neighborhood, for example. And they said, well, you know, part of that is that there's these real systemic issues that exist in the education system. Well, is there anything that can be done about that? And so what Teach for America did 20 years ago was they said, okay, well, why is it also that outstanding graduates from places like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, don't typically consider going into the teaching profession in general? I mean, they've been afforded a fantastic education, and they know the doors that that's opened up for them in life. Why don't they consider going back into teaching or sort of that as a career option? And part of that was, in a lot of ways, because I was talking with Mitch just a little bit earlier, the teaching profession, I think, has been fairly sort of narrowly pigeoned in the sense of, like, okay, if you go into teaching, you're a teacher and that's your career, that's what you do. When you're talking to outstanding future young leaders who really want to make a tremendous impact in terms of the careers and what they're doing, they're looking for opportunities for leadership and really being able to have, you know, far-reaching systemic impact in their careers. And so what CFA said was that, well, what about if we create a program where we look at attracting the most outstanding talent and putting them into areas where there's a tremendous need for really talented teachers, and cultivate them to be future educational leaders in an effort to really advance the agenda, if you will, for educational equity. So that's what they did 20 years ago, and now TFA as a program is one of the sort of most highly respected employers in the US, and an incredibly selective program that essentially takes outstanding graduates